So I would like to introduce to you our great speakers one by one, inshallah, so you will remember more about them. So Dr. Mohammed Obaidullah, I've been knowing him for 20 over the years, mashallah. He is our guru. He is the founder of President at Netversity International. He has authored over 30 certification courses for this platform. And he is a full-time professor of innovation management at SOA University in India and adjunct professor in business at Municipal Global NXT University in Malaysia. So without further ado, are you going to have the slides with you? Yeah, is the operator ready with the slides? So yes, so I would like to give you, if you don't mind, 15 minutes presentation. Thank you, Dr. Mohammed.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, in today's brief presentation, I basically intend to underline the importance of volunteering. The importance of volunteering as a resource. Usually when we look at Zakat or Sadaqah, we are inclined to think in terms of funds or assets. And for assets, fortunately, we have proper accounting methods, proper measurability. We know exactly what was committed and if there is a gap between commitment and the actual disbursement. But when it comes to volunteering, which, as we know, especially in Indonesia, which has year after year been acknowledged as the country that comes at the top in terms of volunteering, there are international organizations which have repeatedly, year after year, they have acknowledged this fact. Now, volunteering is, of course, very common when it comes to the Islamic organizations. But what really I would like to underline is the importance of digital volunteering, especially the fact that digital volunteering can make it easier. It can impart measurability to the contribution when it is in the form of volunteering. First slide, please. Yeah, we know volunteering in Islam, the prophets in Islam, they were the first and the perfect volunteers who really taught us how to contribute to community without any self-interest and without any material gain. And that becomes the textbook definition of volunteering as we know. And there are various other Islamic concepts that are associated with volunteering. You can talk about fi sabilillah or doing in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sadaqah and so on and so forth. They're all connected to the idea of serving the community without any expectation of material gain. Next, please. Now, this particular hadith essentially brings both forms of sadaqah in one place. It talks about sadaqah of funds, or what we call assets, and also the sadaqah of efforts. Now, you can measure efforts in terms of hours, in a quantitative way, and you can also measure it in a qualitative way. So this hadith underlines, or in a way brings together, the idea of sadaqah of funds, assets, and of efforts. Next, please. Now the problem with, the issue rather, with the volunteering as we know and we call it the Sadaqah of efforts, is basically surrounds the measurability of such contribution. Now, once you are not measuring such contribution, unlike the Sadaqah of assets, in an accurate way, you might be doing some miscalculation when it comes to the optimal use of resources. Because these are as important as resource as the financial resources that we usually think of. Now, in the absence of measurability, or if you're not measuring the contribution in terms of hours or in terms of any other metric that you can design or develop for the purpose, then you are likely to get a distorted picture of both the return on assets for any project that you intend to take up, and also, especially if you want to pass on the benefits that you receive through volunteering to your ultimate beneficiaries through maybe pricing your products below the market price, as it happens in case of blended finance, then you have a problem there. So that is why I would like to underline the importance of measurability of such contributions. Next, please. Now, measurability can be assured, can be taken care of in digital platforms much more easily, both with respect to assets or funds and also with respect to volunteering or Sadaqah of efforts. Because we can use the latest technology that is available to us, for example, the blockchain technology, to ensure immutability of the numbers, to ensure that they are tamper-proof, to ensure that every transaction that takes place, whether in a volunteering form or a financial donation, that is basically taken care of, accounted for, it can be monitored, it cannot be tampered with. So you have added transparency and immutability given to you by blockchain. So basically the platforms that use blockchain technology, that they can now ensure that you can use some unique kinds of metrics or tokens to measure such contribution and convert them into kind of social cryptos if you want to incentivize it in some form or other. Next, please. Now, contracting, what kind of contracting takes place on such platforms? We have, of course, the known contracts, as we understand, commercial and non-commercial contracts of donation and of activity and relating to the project, the transactions that take place. These are, of course, they can, in a digital platform, they can take place at much greater efficiency, much greater speed, at a much lesser cost. But we have a different type of contract also that can be better taken care of in case of digital platforms. And this is what we call psychological contracts. These are unlike the contracts, the financial contracts that we are aware of. These contracts are basically implicit contracts. They're based on mutual expectations. If I join as a volunteer, then I have certain expectations. They could be altruistic expectations, they could be rooted in altruism, entirely free from self-interest, or they could be layers of self-interest as well, which are not necessarily impermissible, but which are certainly a matter of fact as we observe around us. So whether it is a question of rights and obligation of the parties in the financial contracts, as we know, or whether it is psychological contracts that we take care of, which have a lot of mutual expectations built in, that can be better taken care of by this. Now, this is what we try to understand in a study, that what kind of expectations are normally you find among the people who contribute human efforts for noble causes. Now, broadly, we divided them into 4 categories of promises. We have the social promise, which relates to connecting with the community or socialization. You have the opportunity promise, which basically is built around professional growth and skill acquirement, skill enhancement. And you have the value promise, which is entirely altruistic in nature and which is basically has a value-driven impact at the ultimate analysis. And then you have the organizational promise, where you are looking at the alignment between your causes, your altruistic motives, and that of the organization. And you are looking at the way that the organization ensures that these motives are, these promises are fulfilled. Next, please. Okay, this one study that I would like to quickly review that we recently conducted involving volunteers from organizations and also individual volunteers. The idea was to understand both the rights, obligations, and expectations that are involved in digital volunteering platforms. And then the ultimate objective was to identify technology-based solutions that would enhance digital volunteering. Next, please. So this was based on 158 responses from volunteers and organizations plus 39 organizations. Next, please. Yeah, what we generally found was some of the promises relating to opportunity and organization. For example, you have such terms, they appeared, they had a much larger frequency in their responses. And this is what underlined the importance of support and training, which is the organizational promise, and the opportunities, the importance of that, and the volunteers' desire for growth that very clearly came out in the survey. Next, please. Now, what are its implications if you are trying to develop a digital platform? In fact, this is what we are trying to do. The first version of such platform we developed called Benevolence 1.0. Now, this exercise was undertaken to develop Benevolence 2.0, where the opportunity promise is supposed to be taken care of through skills matching algorithms, training trackers, goal setting tools, digital credentials, and gamification of tracking and motivating progress. The social promise is supposed to be taken care of through tools such as social sharing, volunteer profiles, event calendars, and meetups to foster community participation. The value promise is supposed to be taken care of through value-based role matching, onboarding modules, transparency in roles, and project voting to deepen purpose and impact. And finally, the organizational promise is supposed to be taken care of through tools such as flexible scheduling, integrated messaging, standby volunteer lists, and feedback tools. Now, these features are expected to be part of Benevolence 2.0, and where the prototype is ready, but which is going to see the light of the day very shortly, inshallah. And this is where we plan to bring together research and education related volunteering into the platform as well. And coming from Netversity, and I can share with you this fact that out of the 50 plus certification courses that are currently being offered, more than 3/4 have come from volunteers. And we look forward to mainstreaming this idea of volunteering contributions from researchers and also from trainers in different fields, including Zakat, including those areas which ultimately help build a halal ecosystem. And there we can, by linking it up with Benevolence 2.0, we look forward to incentivizing as well as measuring such contribution, which ultimately should strengthen the impact of the entire exercise. With that, I come to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed Obaidullah. Round of applause for Dr. Mohammed Obaidullah. Alhamdulillah. You finished on time. Thank you. And he talk about the volunteering in Islam as we all actually Khalifatul fil art and digital sedekah platform, which is very interesting. Where he also elaborated on the contracts, on psychological contract. I like the idea. And he also specified that 4 recommendations on social promise, value promise, organization promise, and opportunity promise. And if you have the materials in hand, the PowerPoint in hand, you may have a look again and draft your questions now. I will open the question and answer sessions later on and get ready for that one. Don't forget, that's platform called Benevolence 2.0 Digital Volunteering Platform.
In trying to answer the first question, which is whether Zakat and Awqaf should be undertaken by a single organization under one single roof, or they should be taken up by different organizations, if I get it correctly. I will take the help of two C's. One C is culture, and the C is competency. The first C gives us an answer in terms of yes. Because both the organizations, both the functions, if we see them as functions, Zakat and Waqf functions, they do not lead to a conflict in culture, especially when you are mobilizing resources. On the mobilization side, unlike the kind of conflict we have often seen in the context of, say, microfinance institutions, which also serve the poor, but where some of the resource could come in the form of grants, another could be in the form of credit. And there is often a conflict of culture which is faced by the employees themselves, whether they should behave as lenders or whether should behave as benevolent, persons who are providing help to those poor and needy. Now, this conflict is not there if you're talking about Zakat and Awqaf organization. So in terms of culture, the answer could be yes, that they can operate under a single roof. And but in terms of the second C, which is competency, I would see a need perhaps for specialization, because Awqaf demands very different types of competencies when it comes to fund utilization. So fund mobilization, of course, we have a cultural similarity, but fund utilization and Awqaf can actually work in a very wide range of areas. For example, you're talking about environmental Waqf. It can demand a very different type of expertise. If you can talk about creating urban infrastructure as our portfolio of Awqaf assets, then that requires a very different type of professional competency. And unlike that, when it comes to Zakat, perhaps we are talking about humanitarian assistance and immediate assistance to the poor and needy. So therefore, the second type of function, which is Awqaf, certainly requires a much wider range of competencies, and perhaps there is merit in looking for Awqaf also specializing in certain areas. We look at social Awqaf in a wide range of areas, and we have had a lot of discussion on how Awqaf can go on to fulfill different sustainable development goals in different areas. So again, the answer is a yes and no based on culture and competency. Regarding the second question,
thank you.
The possible use of artificial intelligence, like ChatGPT, for example, in Zakat and Awqaf organization. I've been an avid user of ChatGPT myself, so I can tell you from my own experience, perhaps, that initially when ChatGPT was introduced, or the initial AI models, they could hardly address the issue of Zakat. Anything you ask about Zakat, the answer you get 2.5%. The finer points, the finer aspects, dimension of Zakat was simply not understood by any of the AI models. But the subsequent developments allowed us to perhaps feed ChatGPT with greater data and the relevant data for us so that it could get better results. So the bottom line is and then ChatGPT also has its own problems of hallucinations, where it can simply bluff its way. You can ask any question and you will get an answer, but there's a high possibility that some of the answers could be simply incorrect. And as researchers, I think there's a very grave concern for researcher community, because often you also receive references which simply don't exist. These are all made up. These are made up by ChatGPT. They look like valid references, but they're not. So in matters of Sharia, of course, we have to be extra vigilant, and we cannot afford any kind of hallucination. So which means this perhaps restricts our possible use in the context of zakat and awqaf. Perhaps the more improved models as they appear on the scene, and we are witnessing very quick and huge enhancements, and perhaps internally you can feed the right kind of data and information and enhance the predictability of such tools. But as of now, even banks and insurance companies and financial institutions, if you see the predominant use of AI is for customer handling, handling customers and depositors and so on and so forth, where there are no intricate issues of evaluation and assessment. Credit assessment is, of course, far easier than your overall assessment of a mustahiq, for example. So AI has to be much more nuanced and much more capable than what it is. And perhaps you need more of human intelligence to be fed into it to do a better job of than what it is doing now. Thank you.
Thank you.